Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Chief Architect Tim Potter.
Wow, good morning, everyone. So when I was first approached to give this talk, moderate this panel, my first reaction was one of terror, being up on the big stage in front of everyone. But then I saw the panelists who were going to join us today, and I was actually really excited. So, of course, now I'm just back to absolute terror. But anyway, our panelists live and breathe difficult, complex search and scaling problems every day, right? The experience and wisdom they're going to express on this stage is absolutely amazing. And beyond what they do at their respective organizations and driving key initiatives around Solr and search, they also lead teams that contribute significantly back to open source. So not only do they benefit, but we also as a community benefit from their great work. So please join me in welcoming our panelists to the stage. Ken LaPorte from Bloomberg. Ken. We also have Jesjit Birak from Reddit. And last but not least, Gennadiy Geyfman from Salesforce. Awesome. Well, welcome, guys.
Thank you.
So basically, to just kick us off, let's go down the line here and talk about each one of your sort of respective roles in your organization and just, give some insights on the problems that you're facing and tackling. Ken?
Sure. Okay, I'll go first. So my name is Ken LaPorte. I run the search and database infrastructure group at Bloomberg. What we do is focus on helping application developers at Bloomberg solve whatever business problem they have. We have a lot of different challenges, everything from high ingest to massive documents to complex queries to regulatory requirements, and just about any different type of search you can think of. And making sure that all of that stays up 100% of the time is kind of our goal and our challenge.
Awesome. 100% uptime.
Well, otherwise I get called in the middle of the night and I don't like that.
Absolutely. Jesjit?
Sure. I'm Jesjit Birak. I'm the senior engineering manager at Reddit for the search team. Our prime directive at Reddit is to kind of bring community and belonging to everyone on the planet, and we're now using search and leveraging search to unlock that potential at Reddit. We have a pretty small team, but we're pretty excited to use search to be able to connect people to these communities, and doing so at web scale is one of the largest challenges that we have, and being able to serve these performing queries and kind of change the narrative around Reddit search.
Cool. Gennadiy?
Hi, my name is Gennadiy Geyfman. I'm Vice President of Engineering for Search at Salesforce. So at Salesforce, one of the biggest challenges we have is obviously scale, because Salesforce runs on massive scale. To give you an idea, we run our document size is over 1 trillion records, and we run over 15,000 machines all around the world in data centers, and with about over 6 million cores. And that's, not only it's a massive scale, but it's a massive cost, if you can imagine, to run this. And maybe not everybody has this type of problem, but for us, agility, innovation, and cost are the big motivators, specifically with what we're doing in public cloud, which we'll talk about later.
That's awesome. That's impressive. So one of the sort of buzzwords around the conference, I think, and the energy I've sensed is, around running Solr on Kubernetes. And I know this is something you guys have tackled in your organization. So maybe starting out with Ken again, tell us about sort of how you're leveraging Kubernetes and what it does for you.
So for us, it's a way of easily orchestrating some of the harder parts of doing the physical physical configuration of Solr, if you will. Houston, from my team, did a great talk yesterday about the Solr operator that we built. And we're really just getting started. Right now, we're using it for development testing. Anytime someone needs to, just try something out, we spin those up. We spin them up, as many as we need to. And Kubernetes makes that incredibly easy. For us, it's just a push of a button. I think it's going to be a game changer for us, and it's one of the things that we're looking forward to really contributing back and working on this year.
Awesome. And just to follow up, so a Kubernetes operator does sort of what for us?
So you can think of it as standing up the process, and with some of the other open source commits that have happened recently in the pull requests, everything from creating your cloud to your collection, your shards, how everything is laid out, what kind of replication factor you need, what the configuration should look like. It takes a lot of the hard work out of that. In addition to Solr, we're also running Zookeeper and Kubernetes, so everyone knows Solr and Zookeeper go hand in hand, and
Absolutely.
Being able to orchestrate both of them at the same time using the same tools makes our life a little bit easier.
Excellent. Okay. And then Gennadiy, you guys are all in on Kube as well. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So for us, it's when you look at this massive scale we're running at, if you really want to, public cloud gives you a lot of things, right? It gives you a really quick way of spinning up containers, ability for engineers to develop and put features out there really, really quickly, but it also comes at a cost, obviously. And we looked earlier on, and if you take a typical SKU and what you run in bare metal and you go to AWS Kubernetes, it's going to be at least 2x cost. If not more, depending on what you're doing. So the innovation that we're doing, I don't know if you guys seen the talk that Ilan Ginsberg and Yannick Seeley did, I believe yesterday morning. If not, I encourage you to look at it online later on. But it's all about where we're trying to move Solr to the next generation from what it is today. Because Solr was not really designed to run in public cloud. And with separation of CPU and storage, with ability to automatically load unload cores on demand, you can essentially run same scale you run today in first party and at much lower cost with Kubernetes and innovations.
That's awesome. I did see the talk, and I was just blown away about the scenarios and the deep thinking your team has done just around all the edge cases of commits and all that. So yeah, I applaud you guys. That was amazing work.
And thank you, because between Salesforce and Lucidworks right now is in great collaboration on some of these projects to help us not just do the changes to Solr, but also get them committed to the community in the right way, so everybody embraces and gets the benefit.
Absolutely, yeah. No, it's been a great partnership with Salesforce and Lucidworks, trying to work through some of these big problems in the cloud, and we think our strategy and our approach is to really collaborate so that it's not just a solution for Salesforce or Lucidworks, but it's actually a community solution. Yes. So yeah, no, that's been awesome. And then Jesjit, I know you're not quite running Solr on Kubernetes, but Reddit is running plenty of different other microservices and stuff. So can you kind of just tell us a little bit about where Kube is in your strategy?
Yeah, so when I came to Reddit, we were basically running off of a huge monolith that we called R2 internally.
Nice.
And what we've done over the past couple of years is we've begun to break up pieces off of that. And as we've done that, we've basically started to deploy these into various Kubernetes clusters, and we're building kind of operational excellence around that. We're building the tooling around that so that we can support ourselves for that. And once we get comfortable with this and we see or kind of iron out the kinks internally for ourselves with these microservices, then we'll begin to kind of figure out what are the next steps for us on the search team and how we can better integrate with this and kind of go into this next generation of Solr and how to run that efficiently, kind of to Gennadiy's point.
Sounds fun. So yeah, for the Solr developers, if you haven't checked out Kube, it's probably time. And on that note, Ken, do you have any sort of brief advice for organizations that they've come to activate, they've heard now Kubernetes, but are just getting started with it? Any advice there?
I think Jesjit really hit the nail on the head. What we did is we took our entire control plane and one service at a time moved it into Kubernetes, let that do the work of orchestrating it for us, figure out all the nitty-gritty, like how do you manage this, how do you monitor it, how do you control security around it, how do you handle networking around it, Once we're comfortable doing that, and our entire control plane lives in Kubernetes now, we're putting some of our middleware between Solr and our users in there, and that solves a lot of the scale problems that we've had historically, because we can auto scale that as much as we want. So now that we're really comfortable, configuring Kubernetes, running it at scale for us, moving Solr into it is the next logical step.
That's awesome. Thank you. So another big theme I've kind of seen around the conference and just in our industry in general is sort of moving to the cloud, as they say. And in this case, I mean public clouds like AWS or GCP. So Jesjit, can you kind of share? I know you guys are running web scale search in the cloud. Share some of your insights there around.
Yeah. So when we started, we kind of I think Nick actually touched on it in his keynote yesterday. We had a 60% success rate for filling queries. And so the first thing that we wanted to do is get Solr stood up in the cloud, and we quickly migrated everything over from our posts, our users, we got our collections up. But in doing so, we basically shared tenancy for all of these collections over the 60 servers or so that we had running in production. And so what we've done now in this year is we've gone to break that up into various pools that we have, so we can basically have bespoke hardware for each collection that we have, independently scale those collections, leverage some of the tooling that Lucidworks has helped us with auto scaling and auto balancing. And these types of, or this change in architecture has really allowed the team to kind of worry less about keeping Solr up and how we're going to get ourselves out of trouble, being able to scale out of that for each collection, being able to split these shards in the same way, leverage the tooling that we have so that we can focus more on relevancy and improving the results and monitoring that and thinking about how do we improve the product that we have. So, and then another thing that we've done that's been actually really successful for us was we've kind of codified our whole infrastructure using Terraform. So before, what used to be a very manual process, we can literally increment an integer within our Terraform modules, spin up a new server, expand these collections, or replace boxes internally. Just actually, I think 2 weeks ago, there was a little bit of a hiccup with AWS, and we were able to get out of that very easily, and that was a very cool moment for the team because something that we would have spent days doing previously, we were able to achieve within an hour.
That's awesome, automation. So you heard it here first, balanced Solr clusters in the cloud.
Yeah.
They do it at very large scale. That's great. And then Gennadiy, I know one of the sort of driving factors around your, running Solr in the cloud at your scale you described earlier is just cost. And so, what are some of the things you're doing to control costs and to basically optimize so that this is actually reality for you guys?
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, one of the biggest projects was separating CPU and storage. So when you separate CPU and storage, you're essentially running Solr stateless. And that allows you to spin up and down containers anywhere you want to. With Blob Store, you don't need to have replication because you only store a thing once. Your DR story becomes much easier because Blob Store has its own DR cross-region. So data is already there if you have to switch over to a different region, and you just spin up the container. So a lot of things become less complicated and less costly. At the same time, we're developing features like transient cores, things we're going to contribute back to the community, where you have to play around with the core sizes and ability to load and unload cores on demand based on traffic. Right. So right now, Solr, you basically load everything you got to an extent to fill it up. But here we have today we have this feature that runs and only runs active cores in memory, and therefore you can shrink the footprint of your containers.
That's great, and I feel like the cloud vendors have solved their ability to replicate and across regions and things.
Yes,
so,
yes.
That's a big benefit.
It very simplifies the problem.
Ken, I won't bug you with this. I know you run probably the second largest cloud in the U.S., but it's probably private, so we won't go in there.
Most of what we do is on-prem, so.
Yeah. So another one of these things that I think, at least I get approached about a lot in my role is, well, scale is important. But at the same time, scale without stability, you really have nothing, right? You have a science project or what have you. So maybe again, just starting down the line, Ken, talk to us a little bit about sort of, how you approach stability and resilience in your systems. You mentioned 100% uptime is the goal.
Yeah. our customers really don't tolerate downtime very well. So, be it our internal application developers or our paying subscribers, uptime is obviously key. The other things around like metrics and stability, we have some really great monitoring that we've built. We monitor everything that Solr is doing, everything that Zookeeper is doing, and everything our machines are doing. So being able to alarm off of that, being able to over-alarm so that we know about problems well before our users do, so that we can intervene. And I got to say, Solr is really very stable. I think a lot of that's due to the work of the people in this room, so they all deserve a lot of credit for that. Yes.
Thank you.
In addition, Zookeeper's obviously stability to a next level as well, at least the way we run it. So whenever we can, we try and solve problems through just testing, monitoring, and catching problems as early as possible.
Right. And one concern I hear a lot is like, well, I'm worried about the Zookeeper and its stability, and because it's so crucial in like a Solr cloud deployment. Have you guys experienced any scaling or stability problems with Zookeeper?
Not really. Although we are looking at, as we're moving to Kubernetes, one of the things that we're looking at is ZCD, which is the Zookeeper interface on top of etcd, and seeing if Solr will tolerate that and perform as well. So that's one of the key things that we're looking at. Otherwise, one of the things that my team does is offer Zookeeper itself as a service, the same way we do Solr. So being able to scale that up, we've had to treat both of those services as mission critical to the company. And my worst nightmare is Zookeeper going down in a very bad way. So,
but it sounds like so far it's been awesome.
Yep. We've also been able to have multiple data centers all running Zookeeper across data centers with some networking tricks and stuff.
Interesting. Okay.
So that helps significantly with resiliency.
Gotcha. That's interesting. And Jesjit, just like talk about how you guys approach stability and resilience. In your
for us, the mantra has been observability over everything, right?
Yeah.
And I know that kind of sounds obvious, but going into it and basically, as we've gone through this journey and we've had issues, we've continued to kind of crescendo the actual monitoring that we have in place. We use Wavefront internally, and then we have that hooked up with PagerDuty as well. And over time, we've actually just been able to get that introspection into the way that our collections are performing, the way the services around Solr are performing, the way that Fusion is performing for us as well, and being able to answer these tough questions or when problems arise, right? And being able to be alerted on it or get ahead of the situation by having the correct instrumentation in place. Yeah. It seems obvious, but at the end of the day, getting to the right level of detail and finding the correct metrics for your organization and the things that are important for you is the challenge that we faced. And over the past, I would say, year, we've gotten to a much more stable place. We also put things like some query timeouts and a few other things to just give us some defensive measures to prevent people that are scraping Reddit or grabbing a ton of content from us, issuing high recall queries. And so for now, that's the kind of step that we've done. But then moving forward, we'll probably start to go in, hot load cores and do things of that nature, and some things that are a little bit more advanced to be able to deal with this. But for us as well, we've also gone through and started to implement SLAs for each service that we've had. Okay. And the goal is to be up 100% of the time.
Awesome. Yeah, and I love they have this wall of their dashboards, up on the wall you walk by, and these cool TVs. It's just really cool to see that in just like real time. So if you don't do that, I think it's a cool thing to have for your teams. And the Gennadiys, obviously you guys have massive scale and stability, things you have to be concerned about, especially 6 million cores. Like, how do you keep track of all those?
Well, it's all structured in sort of pod by pod environment and cluster by cluster. So we monitor cluster by cluster, with the replication that we have. We're making sure that anytime we have at least one running at any given time from availability point of view, and we have red flags like dashboard you talked about, the real-time dashboard lights up with like real alert, and ops people call you if there's if you're running out of hosts, for example. Other things, because the system we have is highly customized right now, we measure P95 query time,
okay.
Indexing speed. It's enterprise, we're very index heavy. And we have SLAs, and if the thresholds kind of break one way or the other, whether it's somewhere down the stack, dashboard goes up and we immediately jump on it.
Awesome, awesome. So, sort of switching gears a little bit, behind all the tech are real people doing awesome things, right? So, maybe Jesjit, start us off. Tell us a little bit about what your teams look like, and maybe some of the skills you look for and that sort of thing.
Yeah, so when I joined the team, we were two folks running Reddit search.
Web scale with 2 people.
Yeah, we've doubled the team now, so we're 4 now. I mean, for us, we have a small team, and so a lot of the DevOps work that we do, kind of going back to my initial point, was to free this team up, because this team is working on the infrastructure, the platform, the relevancy, the core search, products at Reddit, and also driving some of the UI development as well, right?
Yeah.
So for us, the less that we have to worry about the infrastructure, the more that we can get in place with monitoring and alerting, automation, building our toolkit around this is so paramount to our success, because we need to free up our folks to be able to do to solve some of these other more challenging problems around relevance, ranking, and going back to the point of trying to shorten that cycle to help someone find the community where they find that belonging on Reddit, right? And so the less that folks have to worry about the infrastructure, things going wrong or not being alerted, the more kind of mental space they have to kind of think through some of these more challenging problems.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. And then Ken, what do your teams look like?
So our search infrastructure team is made up of 7 people right now. Okay. Some of the best people I've ever worked with in my life. And in addition to those 7 people who are focused on building infrastructure, contributing to Solr, they also offer kind of a white glove professional services interface with the application teams that we work with across the company. At any one time, we're probably focusing on 10 major projects, and 20, 30 of them come and go over the course of a year. So we're always getting new challenges and looking to solve the next big problem.
Right. Do you want me to skip you on this one? Or? No, go ahead.
I always said it will make my team feel better hearing about this, right? So Salesforce, we have a pretty large team, but it's more than just infrastructure. It's infrastructure, data science, data engineers, business analysts, and we own UI as well. So it's a full, essentially, stack development. It's including program managers. So it's about 100 people, more or less. Yeah. And maybe about half of it is infrastructure.
Wow.
But managing infrastructure is probably a small portion of it. A biggest one is we're really investing in the innovation that we talked about, where we want to leapfrog Solr in sort of next generation and really bet on it long term. And so Salesforce does a really good job investing in that.
That's great. That's great. So one
we're looking for Kubernetes.
Yes. Again.
So are we.
Again. Yeah. I'm looking for him too. So.
Okay, we're gonna have a fight behind the scenes.
Exactly. So one topic that has come up a lot in this conference that I'm particularly interested in is it relates to scaling, which is sort of productionalizing and bringing machine learning models into our Solr and our search pipelines and those sorts of things at scale, right? So Ken, I know you guys deal a lot with learning to rank and those type of things. Can you just give us a brief overview of some of the challenges you faced with bringing machine learning and search together?
Sure. So as I think a lot of people know, we help contribute to the Learning to Rank plugin for Solr. And that's been an incredible success, I think, for us and Solr, and Elasticsearch now as well. What I think really interests me is it's commonly misunderstood. The way I like to describe it to people is that it takes good search results and makes them incredibly good. But the real key thing, and I think the big challenge that we've seen, is that people, it's the hot new thing. It's cool. People want to use it immediately without really realizing how much work there is to go into that. I know during the keynote panel last night, they were talking about how it took them a year before they could actually operationalize the LTR component to the point where the results were actually better than basic Solr BM25 TF IDF results. So it really is, there's a lot of work that goes into it, and everything from building the models to actually measuring performance and seeing, is this better qualitatively and is it stable? How does it perform in terms of memory usage? There's a lot of different facets that most people are not realizing, as well as the infrastructure to support like loading models and that sort of thing.
And are these models, like when they generate a prediction, is that piece fast enough for the scale you guys need?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. That's all.
So it's just all the other,
it's the other
management of the model around it. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, that's clear. Cool. So, Jesjit, are you guys doing anything with machine learning at this point?
That's the
Reddit
goal,
search?
is like a lot of the foundation that we've been laying down is to eventually get to that point. I think we were talking a little bit as well, and 2020 we're looking at that as the year of relevancy, and so trying to go and build this pipeline in and start to work with our relevance teams internally to go and build these models, leverage the embeddings that they've been generating, and then start to use that within Solr, so to index that, to build these relationships so that we can start to go and provide these recommendations to our users.
I like that year of relevancy, so maybe that'll be the answer to my last question.
Yeah.
And then, I think one thing I wanted to do, and I should have said this at the intro, is maybe take a question from the audience if you guys are open for that. Just get off the script a little bit. So, does anybody have a question?
I think that's Marcus over there.
Oh yeah, we have one. Oh, Marcus.
Yeah, all right. So, whether it's a filter factory like tokenizers, field types, or language models, you're trying to use language models for natural language understanding, whatever the case may be, it seems to me that to build a search engine, is a global effort. It should be a nonprofit project across multiple industries and multiple companies and different types of people. It's like I'm here because the only technology that needs diversity that I could think of, just to get the job done. I'm curious, what is your commitment? What's the composure of your teams, and how are you making it a priority to improve your search results?
So I can take the first one
Yeah,
there.
thank
So
you.
for Reddit, I think the platform that we have, there's such a diverse set of opinions, and for us, it's paramount that we have diversity within every team at Reddit. To your point, we need to make sure that everybody's voice is represented at the table, and this is something that we are absolutely acutely aware of. We can't build a product for one specific set of people if we're trying to bring community and belonging to everybody in the world, right? And so what I would say is that internally at Reddit, we are deeply committed to making sure that we have a diverse workforce, people from different walks of life, different experiences, different backgrounds, so that we can get all of those voices at the table to build the most compelling product. Because at the end of the day, what we do, it's all about discussion and high quality discussion and getting those diverse opinions from literally anyone and everyone in the world, right? And so I think, yeah, you're right. Search is this interesting intersection of it all, which is, here's all of this information, but how do different people interact with it? How is how are their perspectives different, and how can we represent them so that we can actually build the most compelling product and help people find the content that they need to find? Internally, I know that we have, as we go to hire our teams, we are absolutely committed to making sure that we have everybody represented along the way.
That's a tough act to follow, guys. If you want to leave it.
I second what he
Thank you,
said.
Marcus. Yeah. No, that was good. Thank you. That was really good. Any other audience? We probably have time for one more audience question. Sure. I'll repeat your question if I can hear it.
Just piggybacking off of that, I guess when you're respecting the diversity of voices that go on Reddit, do you guys ever encounter scenarios in which you might have to deal with speech or legalize something on Reddit, and how do you factor that into relevancy and search result, or do you say like everyone's equal, search is
So we have a separate team called the anti-evil team inside of Reddit, and their prime directive every single day, every minute of the day is to go and combat things just like that. And so they're building, it's actually not the search team that's really building that, but rather we have a separate team that's committed to that. So they're removing that content. As that content is removed, search automatically just doesn't surface that content anymore, right? And so while I can't speak to the nitty-gritty details of exactly how they're doing that right now, we have placed a huge importance and we've built an entire organization within Reddit that is committed to solving that problem.
Yeah, good question. Yeah, so, I mean, one of the things, I think this might be maybe my 8th or 9th, before his Revolution conference, and one of the things I just love about this conference is the interaction between people. So now you guys have heard all what you're doing. You're all solving incredibly hard scale problems with Solr. Do you guys have any questions or things you want to ask each other at this point? No pressure, but
I would love to hear more about what you guys are doing around managing these 6 million cores and how you are kind of hot loading specific cores based on the queries that you're getting in, because I think this is something that Reddit could really leverage.
Yeah, we have, and I'm sure folks from my team get it more detailed, but essentially, we track of what the cores, particular clusters are hot at any given time. We load those particular cores, and then if cores get queried that, let's say, algorithm was wrong, we'll quickly load it and remove another one. What I want to do, eventually a lot of this feature will be backed by machine learning, where it's going to be more real time and much easier. It's going to be much easier to do in public cloud. But it was pretty clever engineering on the team, and like I said, we're going to open source it, and you guys will be able to use it as well.
Yeah, and you were saying like the speed of recovering a core off Blob Store is it surprised you.
It's pretty quick. It's faster than we thought initially, of course, it would be, but we still have to do a lot of testing and figuring out, because you have to play with core sizes and understand how do you balance that with the speed and performance that you need for your use case.
Yeah, that's great. That's awesome. Cool. So I think to wrap up, we're just about out of time. I guess one of the questions I think is probably required of any panel moderator is, predictions of the future for you guys. So, what do you think we'll be talking about next year at this conference, Ken?
Obviously, I think Kubernetes is going to be a topic, especially hearing the things that we're all working on. I'd love to hear more about what Gennadiy is doing next year. One thing that we're looking at in addition to the Kubernetes work is there's a lot of overlap between what search is doing and what databases are. And we'd love to be able to build a product that in some way will bridge that gap. Mm-hmm. Everything from, hey, you want to refeed your data, that problem goes away. You want to have transactions, increase consistency, all that stuff. As well as, full text search and relevance on a database. We'd love to be able to, look at that product, figure out what that even is, and start thinking about that.
That sounds awesome. Yeah, fantastic. Jesjit?
There was actually a really cool talk yesterday about these hot swappable plugins for Solr, and I think that was something that was really interesting for us, being able to try new things out, being able to bring them in and out without having to bounce the service. I think that was something that was pretty exciting that I would love to dig deeper on. Cool. And then from there, I would love to see how people have started to approach integrating these ML models into their actual infrastructure and the way that they approach these pipelines and how they make it kind of second nature and easy for everybody to integrate with. Because as soon as you do that, the collaboration becomes just straightforward, right?
Right, absolutely. Gennadiy?
So I think it's going to be two things. One, obviously, is still going to be Kubernetes and public cloud scale, because right now somebody's working at AWS, somebody's doing GCP, but it really the Solr needs to be multi-substrate deployment, right? You should be able to go to any public cloud and any offering and run the same thing.
Yeah, sure.
Right, without a lot of customization and everything else. So I think that's it's still going to be pretty big. And then the machine learning and the models. I think we're doing some interesting things about running that at scale, including with permutations. Like right now, maybe we're running a little over 1,000 experiments at any given time. We're trying to move it to 5,000 and 10,000 and quite a bit more. So building some interesting things that I'm hoping next year will come in and share with everybody.
Awesome. That sounds exciting. So, well, Thank you very much, guys. This has been insightful. I hope everybody enjoyed this and gleaned some good insights. Thank you for your time and all your contributions.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah.